Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Alex Tate, head at St John's School in Leatherhead. St John's School's Leatherhead is a leading co-educational independent day and boarding school in Surrey for pupils aged 11 to 17. The school encourages high standards, both intellectually and emotionally, to prepare pupils to thrive in a complex world, delivering an outstanding education experience in the 21st century. The school's house system and flexible boarding philosophy are central to the school. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Alex.
Thank you very much for having me.
Firstly, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be head at St John's School?
So I've got a slightly different background for perhaps education. In that after reading history at Oxford, I went into containerised shipping industry and spent 11 years in P&O with 8 years overseas, ending up as a general manager of Greater China. I moved to teaching in 2007, doing my PGC, taught at Dulwich College, head of politics, was a housemaster at Abingdon School. And then I actually was at St John's, this school, as a deputy head for 4 or 5 years. I left back in 2016 to become the head at Bedford Modern School, which is an HMC co-ed school. And I had the unique opportunity to return in 2023 to take up my second headship back at St John's, which is strange. You don't have that happening very often in education, but also in careers. But I think it's a lovely opportunity to come back and work and lead in an environment and a community in a school that you've enjoyed working in and that you know so well. So a slightly different background than perhaps some in education.
It was obviously destiny. What are the main entry points for children and families considering St John's?
We have 3 main entry points. 11 plus, so going into year 7, we take in about 94, between 90 and 96 pupils, and they join us for 2 years. And that's topped up with about 45 pupils coming into year 9, or we call fourth form. And so a lot of those will be the prep schools coming in. And then at 16 plus, we probably take another 30 to 35. Generally speaking, we've got year groups of around about 138 to 145 from year 7, so from that very first entry point, all the way through up to the upper 6 in A-level when they leave.
On the school's website, you emphasise kindness as the most important value of the school community and the 5 principles of kindness: respect, inclusion, support, empathy and service. How do these values impact life at the school?
I think the most important point to make here is that the values of kindness and the values that underpin it were actually selected and chosen by the pupils before I arrived, but there's something that I agree with wholeheartedly. The idea of kindness is something that I think resonates really strongly with our families. What I like about the idea of kindness, you can't argue against being kind. You know, it has such a positive impact on so many parts of the community, and therefore they're embedded into daily life. So they actually underpin how we think, how we interact, and how we behave. And you can actually stop a pupil here and ask about them, and they'll say, yeah, kindness is fundamental. So, for example, when we're issuing merits and credits in houses or rewards, we have them linked to kindness. We have prizes that are linked to kindness. But really importantly, when a child makes a mistake, and you know, in schools, children make mistakes, and when we have to issue sanctions, we do, but they're often linked to kindness. And I think it resonates more with a child when you talk to them when they've made a mistake about how that behaviour is unkind and impacting on another person as being unkind. It's much more powerful and more educative than a simple sanction. And so it really makes a difference to them in that. It's reinforced all the time through assemblies and other things. And it's just something that if you visit us, I think you can just see we live and breathe.
That's wonderful. Obviously, I've been in recently and seen you myself, and I had a wonderful tour of the school, but you offer a rather modern approach to boarding that we were talking about that really is, I think, quite unique to St John's Leatherhead. And that's something that we talked a lot about, your flexi boarding. Could you explain what St John's are offering parents and how it works and why the school chose to offer it?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. In our recent surveys, this flexible boarding option came out as probably one of the highlights for what our parents are attracted to and talk about. I think you need to remember the history of St John's as being a traditional boarding school 30, 40 years ago, with the house structures that many of your families will be aware of. Over the years, we've moved to be weekly. And in the last 20 years, we've actually moved to be day with flexi boarding. What does that mean? It means that you can join St John's as a weekly boarder. It means you can arrive on a Sunday evening and you can go home on a Friday. But you can also do a variety of other options. We have flexi, which can be 3 nights a week, 2 nights a week, or just 1 night a week. And then we have ad hoc, which means as a family, you might say, right, I want to do 1 night this week, 1 night the next week, to fit around maybe family plans, travel, or parents if they're busy. What it means is that we have about 30% of our pupils. We've got about 850 pupils. About 30% of them are regularly boarding. But in addition to that, we've got about another 15% who do this ad hoc. So they dip their toes in and out. We base the boarding in 4 of our 10 houses are boarding houses. So if you are going to be a regular boarder, we try to place you in that house. But you could be in one of the day houses and just when you decide to board, you pop over to that house in the evening and you spend your nights there. It's quite unique. It's a model I see being copied elsewhere, but it's quite challenging because you can imagine for house staff, Wednesday night, I'll have 160 children, Thursday night, 180, lower numbers on a Monday and Tuesday. And that peak and trough is hard for us to manage. But the children get all the benefits of full boarding. So in an evening, they're still using the facilities, the swimming pool, the Astros, but they've also getting the academic support and the prep that they would get in a normal boarding environment. And it's a caring, supportive community. Anyone's welcome to join boarding whenever they want. And we likewise want people to try and dip their toe in. We find it is very attractive with our busy families that perhaps don't want to do or commit to that full weekly Saturday boarding, but want to just have a little bit of boarding.
Well, and I think as we both know that older the children get, certainly when we're speaking to parents through the consultancy, they can be starting doing rowing at 6, 7 o'clock or sports or drama and then often staying till very late. So it's probably win-win, I would imagine.
Parents said to us in the survey, the children often choose. So often the children will go home to mum and dad and say, look, I'd really like to try a couple of days. And so it perhaps is testament to what I think they benefit from it, that they often go home and ask for that.
You also offer boarding to lower school students. How does the boarding for the younger pupils differ and how are they and their families supported at St John's?
We do. So lower school, a reminder for your listeners, is year 7 and 8. So for them, we have a specific lower school area in the school. So rather than being in one of the houses, there's a lower school area with a specific member of staff who's looking after them. There's slightly more pupils in a room. We want them to be socialising more with one another. And of course, they have a slightly earlier bedtime, but they have all the activities, the use of the facilities that the others can use. We try to put on a few more organised activities. We want them to get into the routine of boarding and enjoy it. And actually, one of the other benefits is they enjoy mingling with the older pupils at breakfast and dinners and things. So it's increasingly popular, and it's about getting them into the routine and enjoying staying away from home for an evening or 2 a week.
And they have a totally separate area, don't they?
Yeah. Separate zone, a bit like our lower school anyway. Our lower school is a separate, think like it as a separate house to your listeners. So for year 7 and 8, we put them together in their own house. And year 9 above, they go into one of our designated houses. So they have their own area for boarding, which is just above where they spend their times during the day. So it's a lovely, caring atmosphere that really develops their love of boarding, I hope.
I've actually seen the rooms. They're very bright and cheerful and enticing. Sport, further to this, obviously when I came round, I saw the swimming pool, the sports fields, everything's on site. It's a very big part of life at St John's. Could you tell us about what sports you offer and the different sports facilities?
I'm glad you had the chance to look at it because we're very fortunate to have what I think are some fantastic facilities. Actually, again, our families talk about the convenience of having those facilities on site. So On site, we've got our 2 Astros, we've got hardcores, we've got the sports centre, brand new swimming pool, state-of-the-art gym, dance studio. Our pupils have access to, and we also work with our local community to use. So we're really lucky to have that. It means you can quickly switch this school day from your academic lessons to changing you're out playing hockey or kicking a ball, really quickly. We offer a huge range of sports. Our main sports are football, rugby, cricket, netball, hockey, swimming and tennis. But there's more choice as you move up the school. So we'd also offer athletics, cross country, water polo, squash, badminton, rounders, yoga, golf, climbing, shooting, sailing. Pretty much if you want to kick it, run it, do it, we will offer it. We've got about 2,000 competitive fixtures across about 14 sports on average per year. And I think it's important for listeners to understand is that while we don't have Saturday lessons, we do have an extensive sporting fixture list. And we really encourage that. We want the children to be coming in and to be enjoying competing at sport, but not just the competition, but being part of a team. So, for me, it's about participation as well as excellence. The memories that these children are going to have is about that coach trip to Brighton on a Saturday. And they're the memories I can remember. And it almost doesn't matter. Quite like to win, but it doesn't matter about the result. It matters that you're playing sport with your friends and taking advantage of all that's on offer. And, that's reflected in our numbers. About 92% of our pupils represented the school last year competitively. I love going to watch my netball E team. They're fantastic. They're the ones, benefit as much as the A team.
That's wonderful. And what effect does the emphasis you place on the co-curricular side have on your students and the school community?
I think the message I want to get across to my families and the things they tell us why they chose us is that we're very proud of our academics, but we're not a hothouse. We're an all-round education. And I always say to pupils and parents when they arrive, don't leave here with any regrets that you didn't try things. Like many schools, we've got so many things on offer, and particularly in the co-curricular. We want them to try to find that hobby, that interest that is going to be perhaps stick with them for the rest of their lives. Our performing arts department has grown enormously over the past few years. And on average, we have about 47 performances, 32 arts clubs. We've got 4,000 peripatetic lambda and music lessons happening. And I think about 40% of our pupils will be doing some form of performing arts. And that's really high when you consider it's voluntary. And what I really like is there's no stereotypes between performing arts or sport. Those old stereotypes of you did one or the other don't exist here. And I love the fact that let's take my first 15 prop or my first 11 girls hockey goalkeeper is also singing in Sweeney Todd musical performance or in the choir in chapel. Because I think that means that they're willing to get involved. And we make children attend activities in clubs. We want to expose them to as many possible opportunities, and they get to choose that more as they go up the school.
And I've certainly seen your theatre, which feels like you're in the West End, actually.
Well, our director of performing arts is former West End and is absolutely phenomenal because he's brought the expertise of a real West End performer, and the bar is so high and the children just respond to it, and it's amazing to witness.
Fantastic. A big focus, obviously, of our magazine, Education Choices, is EDI. How do you feel you implement, or increasingly, I would say, actually, EDIB, belonging? How do you feel you implement this at St John's School and support pupils who may be struggling with things like mental health or neurodiversity?
I completely concur. I think it's probably one of the most important things that we're doing. I think if you focus first, if I can, on sort of the pastoral need, the mental health, neurodiversity. I'm very proud of the fact that we have a neurodiverse pupil population. And actually, I think increasingly we need to be thinking as educators that everyone in society is neurodiverse. The idea of neuronorm is slightly bizarre the more you think about it. But we seek to support them through an extensive academic support, whether it's trained Senkos through to teaching assistants. We have a dedicated pupil mental health lead who just focused on running sessions for pupils and webinars for parents, for example, on social media, mental health, anxiety, exam stress, and my favorite, which is food and mood. And so there's these sessions where parents can drop in and you can also talk to parents. They also lead our Mighty Minds group, which supports pupils in developing their resilience and emotional awareness, and also a group called Free Being Me group, particularly supporting some of our girls in Year 8 to develop healthy body image, self-esteem and confidence. So you've got that going on, which is about the mental health and support, in addition to obviously the PSHSE programs and education in the classroom. I think the most important thing, though, is things that are pupil-led. So there's peer mentoring programs. So our lower sixth, our 17-year-olds are trained and allocated a pupil on how to look after other pupils, basic safeguarding and peer support. And we've had a lot of success in them identifying where our pupils need help, and so that we can intervene and help. I think with regards to EDI, the equality and diversity, again, it's actually about the pupils. We have an EDI lead, we have undertaken surveys, but actually the most important thing is the pupil EDI group, because they're the ones who are discussing the issues of equality, diversity and inclusion. They're important to them. And that means that we can work with them to react and support. And perhaps the two most powerful assemblies that we've had this year, far more powerful, I dare to say, than mine, and more impactful for the pupils, was the one we recently had where pupils and staff stood up and talked about their neurodiversity and how that was their superpower. And the other one, where was one on diversity and inclusion, where again, the EDI group stood up to talk about inclusivity and how we can make a difference in the community. And I think when you've got pupils willing to stand up and do that, you know you've got something right going on in your community. There's always going to be more that we can do, but if we can listen, talk to our parents, talk to our pupils and educate, then we're heading in the right direction.
That sounds fantastic. And then one of my final questions, how do you feel that as a school you promote the importance of service and giving back to the community?
One of the 5 principles of kindness is service. And in average, our pupils will do about 5,284 hours of service and over 2,500 hours of volunteering. Perhaps the best example I can give you is something we call our community holiday. This is something it's celebrating its 10th year, and it's in the summer holidays where one of the boarding houses is opened, and it is open to children with acute special needs. And the children come and stay with us for a whole week. We have a whole host of activities. They stay in our boarding rooms, and our children and staff, and increasingly our alumni, look after the children and support them. And it allows those families a break. So the parents who are full-time carers can go away and actually get us some rest. And it's the most heartwarming thing you'll see, because on the Monday, you'll have pupils who are introduced to the child they're going to look after, and it's really scary for them. You know, this is a child with complex needs. But over the week, you'll see them develop their links as they support that child. You'll see them taking them to Chessington, to the beach, and every evening around the campfire, they have a sing-song. It's brilliant. And even the headmaster's known to drive the minibus off to a variety of activities. And the testament of the success is it's gone on for 10 years, as I've said, but also that we are oversubscribed with alumni coming back who want to continue to support that community. That's the best example, but we also have community service units where our sixth form volunteer in primary schools, undertake reading, we had Christmas lunch for the elderly, service, our CCF, our D&V are thriving. So I really, really want pupils to leave St John's with an appetite for service and for giving back, because I think we're very lucky in the education our children receive here. And they know it's a privilege. And I think they want to go back and provide feedback and more to the wider community.
And what are your plans and hopes looking forwards, projectively, for the future of St John's Leatherhead?
Brilliant question. I think the most important thing for me for ahead is there's no room for complacency. We've always got to be looking at providing an innovative and a modern and exciting education. And particularly with education developing so rapidly, we need to be making sure that we're providing an education that equips them with the character to embrace the challenges of wider world. And what I mean by that is we have to be equipping children for jobs that haven't been created yet. And yes, that's the academic results, because that's going to get them through to use the analogy of the underground in London, that's going to get them through the turnstile, the ticket stub. But where they go, which station they go to, is going to be about their emotional intelligence, their resilience, their communication skills, their happiness. And I think we need to be providing with that. We need to develop our furtherly ambitious and inclusive community where they're going to thrive. Most importantly, I want us to ensure that we are making sure that we are offering still the unique education that I think is St John's, that our parents tell us, that is down to earth, that is unpretentious, that is inclusive. And I want to make sure that we're bottling that up and we're marketing it and selling it as much as possible to our families, And the best way of doing that is clearly visiting. But we need to be bold that we are unique and be bold about why we're unique and why we think people and children will thrive in St John's. So lots to do.
Lots to do, but a very busy school and a lovely one. And as you say, well worth, I think, parents visiting. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time. And I'm very grateful for giving the opportunity to talk to your listeners. Thank you.